So let's talk about the Crimean Bridge, or the Kerch Bridge, whatever you want to call it, because for the first time in quite some time, Russia is using this bridge again, which, if you know anything, means they're getting desperate. For those who don't know, a brand new video was uploaded onto YouTube today, though it was dated that it was taken a few days ago. And in the video, which you can see, this guy is driving down the bridge. It looks like he's driving towards Russia from occupied Crimea, and you can see a double-decker train, I mean just the two trains on it, carrying fuel, some kind of cargo box, I mean a lot of them too, a lot of fuel, some kind of, whether they're tanks or personnel carriers, more fuel and more cargo. If you know anything that's been going on with the Russians, you know that this right here is desperation. And in order to understand all of this, you have to go back to the first time when Ukrainians started attacking this area. Russia had built this bridge, which a lot of people call an illegal bridge, after 2014. Because if you go back in time, you realize that's a time where Russia invaded Crimea, took over all the bases in the area, and then said, hey, we need a better way of getting between occupied Crimea and Russia. So they built that bridge, even though everyone said, you can't do that, that's not your country. And over that time, Russia has used it. Remember, it's got train on one side and it's got cars on the other. They use it to move in and out a lot of equipment. We're not just talking about military stuff, but also civilian stuff, whether it's food and supplies. You know, Kherson is known for a lot of its watermelon. So on the other side of Crimea, they would plant some of the Kherson watermelon, grab that stuff and head over there, and also known for their grapes and their wine. But anyway, all that being said, when Russia started their invasion, or prior to their invasion, Russia was using this to bring over a ton of military equipment. It became a very important lifeline for Russia, one of the many supply chains they had. And so, after they invaded and they built out more of these supply chains, they were using routes like through Mariupol and the Crimean Bridge to get supplies, equipment, oil, gas to the occupied areas. Fast forward, and Ukrainians said, we need to put a stop to the supply chain, so we're going to go ahead and hit the bridge, which they did twice. At one point, damaging it so badly that Russia could not bring heavy equipment on that bridge whatsoever, which was great. A supply chain damaged. But Russia had to bring more things, and so they built up new supply chains, other things that went through like even Donbass and Mariupol, all the way down to Crimea. And one other way that Russia has been able to keep the supply chains going, especially from trains, is that they have certain ferries. In total, they've got 7 altogether, but 2 of these main ones that are massive, they're blue looking, and essentially Russia just brings them to the rail yard. The trains come right on. Once again, fuel, equipment, you name it. And then they take this ferry across the way, across the Sea of Azov. They unload the stuff in Crimea, and Russia has a supply chain. Well, if you've noticed, in the past year, Ukrainians have been attacking every single supply chain. It's actually really funny how they do it, because Russia would build a brand new bridge or put a new rail system together, and Ukrainians would destroy it, and then Russia would rebuild it. And Ukrainians would wait until it's done, until it's about to be open. They have a big ceremony, and then Ukrainians, boom, it is gone, destroyed once again. And one of the other ways that Russia was being able to do this stuff with not really worrying that, oh, if they take out the land, we'll get the boat ones, is the fact that Ukrainians they really weren't striking in the Sea of Azov. They really weren't. They had some long-range stuff, but it wasn't really anything to be worried about, so they just kept the ferries going. The ferries going from Russia to occupied Crimea, or from Russia to Mariupol. And now that Ukraine has some long-range weapons, ATACMS, Storm Shadows, you name it, they are able to strike these targets. And so just a few days ago, we've seen Ukrainians strike those ferries. One of them severely damaged. I think it's completely out of commission. There's a big hole in the floor. Another one kind of burnt, some damage, but they're not going anywhere. And because those things were hit, a couple tugboats were hit, a couple patrol boats were hit, and even just yesterday, we saw even not more damage higher up in the Sea of Azov. Russia's like, oh wow, we have a problem. Because now Ukrainians are getting through all of our defenses, which do not exist, and they're hitting all of our boats. And all of our supply chains over water are gone. Just a little clarification. It was announced today that a few days ago, Ukrainians were able to get a Sea Baby, or another kind of naval drone, all the way through the Black Sea, through the Kerch Straits, all the way up to the very top of the Sea of Azov, and hit a tugboat and a barge. Now, how were Ukrainians able to do that when they had to go through the defenses that were built at the Kerch Bridge? We're talking about floating buoys, different kind of sensors or things, barges that set off all the sensors, and a couple other things. They were able to do it, which meant that Russia has absolutely no way of getting equipment from Russia to occupied Crimea. So what'd they do? They said, look, we got to get stuff over. We're going to use the Kerch Bridge, which has been heavily a no-no because Ukrainians, they're waiting until Russia has just the right amount of stuff on that bridge to take it out. Because enough fuel on there, and you hit it with a drone or something else, and the rest of that bridge is gone, completely out of commission. And that's what Ukraine wants. They want to shut down all the supply chains. And for Russia to show that they're using the bridge means that they've already taken care of all the other supply chains. And this is where Joey's thoughts are going to come out, because what I'm thinking is happening moving forward is, since all the supply chains, pretty much from Mariupol heading downwards, have been hit, the ferries have been hit, the other patrol boats have been hit, and now that Russia's using the Kerch Bridge, I think Russia knows that their days in Crimea are numbered, because they would never risk this unless they desperately needed it. And they're not putting in any boats or sending any boats or transport boats in the Black Sea. We did see one landing ship that was moved that was in Russia. Actually, several boats were moved. One was moved towards Crimea that could be used as some kind of transport, but I'm sure Ukrainians are going to wait until that's loaded and then that's going too, just like how the other ones were loaded and then kind of were sent out. So I think we're seeing at this moment Russia getting the last things they're going to get through Crimea before Ukrainians start really pushing in. Because Russia right now, they're taking crazy losses. I mean, we're talking about 1,250 people a day, and I haven't even looked at the numbers. I'm actually looking up right now for what that number is, but that's the average. And they're taking heavy losses and moving all their resources, and now that Ukraine can strike into Russia with other kinds of weapons, they're taking a beating. Like today, Russia lost another S-300, 400. And then that tugboat got hit, another boat got hit. And we know that that Su-57 was hit just yesterday, and potentially two of them, but we're only counting one at the moment. So for yesterday's number, we're 1,190, below the average, but the other days are a little bit higher, so the average still stands. 10 tanks, 51 artillery, 13 different kinds of vehicles, and 1 aircraft. So Russia, I think, in Crimea is going to probably see a massive amount of explosions as Ukraine's going to give Russians the opportunity to go over the Kerch Bridge one last time, then finally take out the bridge, and then finally push into that area from Kherson. And that's where I think we're heading towards. And once again, I don't believe that Russia would have used the Kerch Bridge unless they desperately needed to get stuff over, knowing that Ukraine has their eyes on that bridge 24/7, and they're waiting for fuel to be up there. They're waiting for something to happen. Either it's going to be sabotage, or there's going to be some kind of, whether it be like false flag operation somewhere, and then Russia's going to have to move this stuff, and then boom, hit it. I think what we're going to see next is, once again, explosions in Crimea. Russians are going to evacuate. Once they evacuate, they'll take down the bridge and then really fully go in. Though a lot of people said that that bridge really doesn't mean much anymore, but since Russia is using it again to send a bunch of resources over, then it might be worth their while to hit it. Granted, the other argument I've been seeing online is the fact that Russia wants Ukraine to use any kind of Western weapons on that bridge, because maybe they're only using it as like a, hey, hit this bridge so that you use up some of the weapons the West sent you, and then we'll hit you from somewhere else. I've seen that argument in a few other groups, but this is where you come in. I want to know what you think. I know there's a lot of weird things going on at the same time. We've got things going on in Kharkiv where Ukrainians are pushing back the Russians, and I mean, they're hitting a lot of targets inside. We've got the U.S. saying that we never told Ukraine that they couldn't hit any kind of Russian aircraft from Ukrainian aircraft that are flying inside of Russia. And now we're seeing Russia desperately trying to move equipment. There's something else going on we're not seeing. Clearly, something behind the scenes that you and I won't know. I mean, we've been seeing information be delayed like 5-6 days. I mean, the tugboat thing happened a few days ago. This bridge video happened a few days ago. And I'm sure there's other things that